There is a dissonance. It's the room around the TV, the curtains in a play. It's the very tangible space between me and a story. The moment when I'm reading a book and my mind just zooms out, and instead of seeing the battlefield where our heroes face against the greatest enemy, it all becomes words on a page. But that doesn't stop stories from captivating. That rather than pushing through the dissonance, it pulls me in, into a world that's brimming with detail that bring the whole world to life. Home to a narrative that's so gripping that when the curtains fall, the last page is turned, I'm left wishing for more. Today, I wanted to invite you to join me as we delve into one such story, to explore a universe that's so big yet every corner feels so alive, full of mystery and the unknown. I invite you to get Astra Lost in Space. Meet Cared High Group B5, a group of high school students about to embark for planning camp. In this far-off future of 2063, space travel has just become an everyday facet of life. And what's meant to be a simple week alone on another planet quickly shifts into a story of survival, as a mysterious fear sucks up everyone, leaving them adrift in space. Not all hope is lost, however, as floating among them is an abandoned spaceship. Unable to make it back home in one go, the newly dubbed Astra has to make it planet to planet in an attempt to inch their way closer to home. When I first watched Astra Lost in Space, the biggest thing that had me hooked was the characters. And being as they're lost in space, we really get to hyper-focus on our core crew. Each of the 9, all unique in both visual design and personality, that they're all able to stand out from the rest. Unlike other animes like My Hero Academia, where characters need literal name tags, it doesn't take long to feel well antiquated with the members of the Astra and where they all fit on the ship. One of my absolute favorite parts of Astra Lost in Space is that the spotlight never focuses solely on a single character, instead choosing to highlight characters in relation to the rest of the crew. In this vast emptiness of space, the best point of comparison to view the cast is against, well, the rest of the cast. What makes them alike and different from one another is what defines each of them. Couple that with how every experience is more or less shared across the entire crew. Watching how characters all react to the same situation, you really get an intimate grasp of who each person is. This is easiest to spot in the differences category, where on the first planet, Kitori wants nothing more than to just get off the planet and go home. Aries can't help but crack a smile at the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity afforded to her and her new group of friends. But what Astra Lost in Space does that's special is it leans into the similarities the characters share, and adds the subtle flares that keep each crew member still feeling wholly unique. Take again for instance Kitori and the Astra's pilot Zack. As kids, both had a single parent who was constantly at work, leaving them alone for the majority of their childhood. What separates the two is where Kitori grew bitter from the situation, making her a much more selfish person. Zack took it in stride, using the resources available to him to expand his knowledge. It's a very nuanced approach to character design that works in tandem well with how the narrative is set up, the show feeling sometimes less about what's happening directly, but instead witnessing 9 distinct reactions to the same events. This is your moment now to decide if you want to keep the story of Astra Lost in Space spoiler-free, as I'm about to dive into a scene that gets quite plot involved. There is a timestamp on screen and in the description, and I honestly recommend you use it, and don't come back to this part of the video until you've watched or read ALS, as it's easily one of the best moments in the anime. I just can't help but talk about it. For those of you who have stuck around, I want to take a look at Planet Arispade. The 2 characters of note are Luca and Olger. On the surface, the 2 couldn't be more different. Luca is fun and charismatic, he's constantly cracking jokes with such a laid-back demeanor. Olger, in stark contrast, is just a few steps away from falling off his own edge, it seems. You can find him in his usual spot of around here, in the back of the room, or here, leaning against the wall, showing really no desire to interact with the rest of the Astra, if it isn't out of complete necessity. This doesn't stop Luca, however, from making it a personal goal to befriend the lone wolf. Having been the one to supply Olger with the tools for his hunting endeavors, he convinces him to go fishing with him. Another moment where we see the two as such opposite sides to the same coin. Luca barraging him with an array of questions, most eliciting responses consisting of 1, 2, just a handful of words. We do see Olger break character when he learns Luca's last name, acting very frantic about the new revelation. Fast forward and everyone's gathered outside for a picnic. One thing looming over everyone's head is just who sent them all into space, and the very real possibility that one amongst them could be a traitor. Having gotten so close to everyone, Luca denies the idea that anyone on the ship could be out to kill them. The same Luca who, moments later, is being held at gunpoint. Olger isn't the killer, however, or at least so he claims. For him, this is a personal vendetta. Growing up without a loving father, Olger's only friend and person who cared about him is his brother, or was his brother. In what was labeled a suicide, Olger's life had been twisted with revenge for a brother he believed to have been murdered by none other than Marco Esposito, Luca's father. As a hereditary politician, by killing Luca, he would not only be robbing him of his heir, but of somebody he loved dearly, not much unlike what happened to Olger. There's just one flaw in this whole plan. Luca's dad doesn't really give a shit about Luca, and there are two main factors in that. For one, his parents struggled to have a child and resorted to adopting Luca, but not too long after, they were able to conceive a child of their own. But Luca's the eldest, so it should still be him, right? Well, maybe, if it weren't for the fact that Luca is intersex. Having no value to his adoptive father, Luca knows his death would do nothing to Marco. Olger panics. This has to be a lie, right? Even if what he's saying is true, how could a father just not love him?
そう、ウルガーさんならわかるでしょ。オイラの気持ちが。撃ってもいいっすよ。でも無駄っす。父さんが悲しんでくれたら、オイラは嬉しい。
ウルガー、ついてこい。見てみろ、秘密の場所だ。気持ちが負けそうな時は大声を出すんだ。ここなら誰にも聞かれない。向かい風だ。叫べ、ウルガー、叫べ。畜生、畜生。
What's so powerful is how raw the character drama is. Olger's backstory and motivation are strong and compelling as is, and Luca's reveal as intersex is important to his development, but to layer the two atop one another is what elevates this moment. In an episode that spent so much time juxtaposing the two characters, it's most compelling exploring the similarities they share. I understand Luca and how he feels about his loveless dad on a much deeper level because it was presented to me in direct comparison to Olger and the relationship he shares with his father. I think one of the biggest clarifications I can make about Astra Lost in Space is that despite what the premise may have you believe, it's much more of a character drama than a survival show. I definitely wouldn't go into this show expecting anything similar to Dr. Stone, where Senku just sciences the shit out of the world. That's not to say that the planets of Astra Lost in Space are just set dressing. Quite the opposite, actually. For one, each planet they visit feels like a living ecosystem that never feels fake or manufactured. Time is taken to breathe life into every place that Astra visits, and in a way that's much more grounded in real-life scientific concepts, so no quantum carburetors or microverse batteries science BS. The way that Charles, the local biologist, describes each planet makes me believe that if the universe truly is infinite, then somewhere out there these planets could really exist. Where these planets truly get to shine is as the villains, trying to stop Astra from reaching its end destination. The term of villain is a bit of a stretch though, because that would imply a level of malicious intent. But for the most part, everywhere they visit upon first arrival is indifferent to the crew, with conflict being more like puzzles as they try to find a place in an alien ecosystem. Being so grounded, every planet operates on a very specific set of rules. Walking in with the same amount of knowledge as the characters, new information for us is just as new to them, and they do a great job of not hiding anything from the viewers so that all conclusions they make in the show never feel like Deus Ex Machina. Let me give you a tour of my favorite location in Astra Lost in Space. Once again, here's a timestamp if you so choose, and just as a quick side note, I will be referencing the manga here and there as they just have those couple extra details that put a nice little bow on the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be starting our descent. Please fasten your seatbelts, put your chairs in the upright position. Thank you for flying aboard the Astra, and welcome to Planet Shamor. With a very brown-tinted atmosphere and just 85% of Earth's gravity, immediately your eyes are drawn to the giant pole trees, towering above the rest of the barren landscape. Even more interesting than the size of the trees are what's found at their base. A pile of moss covering animal carcasses. All clearly herbivores by their teeth shape, what's less clear is the cause of death, with no wounds to be seen, let alone any predators. Checking in on our friends, while the situation isn't dire yet, things are far from good. For food, the only source found so far are these candy plants. While delicious when first picked, they sorely lack in the longevity department. Just the walk back to the ship and they've already withered and become inedible, with no way to preserve them for the 20 trip to the next planet. At first glance, the water situation seems less terrible, having found large cactus barrels. But they're so bulky that the local groupies can only carry 2 a trip, and for their size, each cactus barrel only contains 5 liters. Do the math, and that's a minimum requirement of 2,000 barrels needed to move on. On this food chain, the crew of the Astra find themselves in dead last, and are about to come face to face with that which sits on top. Poultry is a bit of a misleading name, as it's more of a mushroom, releasing deadly, poisonous spores that slowly kill anything unfortunate to breathe them in. On this backwards planet, the poultry is in a symbiotic with the moss plant at the base. The cycle goes that the mushroom kills the animals to feed the moss, and in turn, the moss photosynthesizes. The cycle goes that the mushroom kills the animals to feed the moss, and in turn, the moss photosynthesizes. The cycle goes that the mushroom kills the animals to feed the moss, and in turn the moss photosynthesizes. The cycle goes that the mushroom kills all the animals to feed the moss, and in turn the moss photos. The cycle goes that the mushrooms kill the animals to feed the moss, and in turn the moss photosynthesizes energy for the mushroom. As Charles puts it, the poultry spreads their poison not as a defense mechanism, but as this planet's apex predator. This all leads to my favorite moment as Kanata, the only one left not affected by the poison, is in a race against the clock to figure out just what the hell to do in order to save his friends. He's presented with all the same information I just gave you, and where in the previous encounter Kanata was able to coast off his raw athleticism, there's just no way to brute force his way past the poultries. All the pieces had been laid out, except for one. There has to be some method of crowd control. Enter the antidote mushroom, something produced by the poultries to cure the ailment of its spores. They're produced at the base of the poultry as a method to both attract the fauna of the world and ensure that they're able to reproduce and maintain balance in the ecosystem. Now, whenever the spores are released, the animals have been conditioned to flock to the poultries lest they wish to die a slow death. The poultries aren't doing this out of the kindness of their own heart, however. Only a fraction of the animals actually get the antidote mushroom. The rest, well, I'm sure you can assume what happens to them, and What might happen to the crew of the Astra if he doesn't manage to get his hands on this mushroom? Rushing to find the one thing that can save everyone, he finds himself staring up the mighty shaft of the pole tree, in a scene that absolutely dwarfs him. How small and insignificant he is on this alien planet. Though he was able to save the day, the ones to come still aren't certain. Their food and water supplies still left unanswered. But in an ecosystem where giant-ass mushrooms spread death by air, every moving piece has to be deliberate for a species to survive. When the spores began to spread, Charles took notice of the groupies, a species we've seen in the most abundance, weren't scrambling to find the nearest shelter, but all stampeded off in a certain direction. Such organized movements must imply some sort of destination. A destination that would be able to support the needs of a large group from the spores for an extended period of time. Most importantly, the need for water. As for the food, the answer to that has been hiding right in front of them this whole time. While they never considered the idea of eating a tree, a giant mushroom is hardly out of the question. What's so cool about the world design is that every detail is an important detail, and this extends beyond just the design of the planets. Ever since being sucked into a mysterious black sphere, it's been clear from the start that there's something much bigger brewing in the background. It's a big mystery that twists and turns in a way no one would be able to see coming. But it's never an out-of-pocket twist for the sake of shock value. The groundwork is always laid for every big reveal. They're not game-changing because they fundamentally change the story and its direction. They're parts of the narrative that have always been there, and we're just now being made aware of their presence. On paper, a short summary of the plot just can't do it justice, as it heads in directions that feel so different from where it started. But they do a really good job of avoiding that feeling of whiplash by slowly drip-feeding the viewers just enough information, as a way to both ease us into all the new directions the anime hits, as well as keeping us on the edge of our seat, dangling the promise that there's still more to come in front of us. One thing I was made acutely aware of in the course of watching Astra Lost in Space is I enter a very specific mentality, one that's keen on differentiating what details are important to the plot and those that aren't. But there just isn't that second category with Astra Lost in Space. I refer to this anime as having a mystery, but it's because you don't even realize it's there. It's the year 2063 and interstellar space travel has become the norm. Just rip that straight from the back of every copy of the manga. That's all we could concretely say about this world, and we just kind of accept that. I wouldn't even call it suspending my disbelief, because my brain doesn't even attempt to fill in the information it doesn't have. Those all just get slid into the non-essential category and swept under the rug. But the mysteries in the story of Astra Lost in Space are intrinsically tied to the world it takes place in. And it's on that willingness to concede that information not given is information not needed that ALS preys on to really sell its mystery. This is going to be your final spoiler warning. While I won't be touching any of the bigger plot-centric points, I will be touching on a lot of the bigger world-centric ones, and I definitely advise if you want to not hear it, timestamp. A lot of the revelations that come to light coincide with the introduction of this new character, Polina. Found in a ship identical to the Astra, wrecked and abandoned, she's the sole survivor, found in one of the cryostasis pods since July 2051. As she regains her strength aboard the Astra, we get the sense that things aren't all as we thought they were. First, when asking Yunha what year it is, she has a very frantic response. She does remember that whatever is causing her anxiety wasn't made public knowledge, leaving it at it should have happened. Next is when she gains enough strength to go outside the ship. While the crew are all wearing sleek, stylized spacesuits by specific brands, Polina's is a bit bulkier and very reminiscent of one we're much more familiar with. But the real nail in the coffin is when Zack uses parts of Polina's ship to repair their own, most importantly, the Deep Space Telescope. Polina, excited to see Earth in over a decade, swiftly goes from excited to confused at all the inconsistencies from how she remembers it. She asks the crew if that planet could really be Earth, a planet none of them have heard of. I'll leave it there for the rest of the mystery for you to uncover yourself. Some stray thoughts before you go. The anime does this really beautiful transition between full screen and widescreen to give the planets a much more grounded feel and spaces seem even more vast and expansive. I did love reading the manga though too, as it just gives us a few extra details here and there that really tie the whole thing together. And at the end of the books, there are the 4-panel comics of just the Astra in their day-to-day life as they're going through space that just, I don't know, I thought they were fun and cute. Above all else though, this is an absolute gem of an anime. If even the tiniest bit of you is interested in watching Astra Lost in space, you'd be doing yourself a disservice to not at least check out the first few episodes. Especially if you find yourself stuck at home for any current, ongoing, viral, infectious diseases, 19, and the world can seem a bit rough, then hey, why not get sucked into another? Why not get Astra Lost in space? Thank you so much for watching. It's been a real labor of love to make this video. I think I started it back in like March or so, give or take. So I'd really appreciate if you left a like on this, as I've never really done anything like this before, so also feedback and like a comment or I don't know, DM me. I have plenty of ideas for future videos, and those should happen in a much more timely manner than this one. But in between that, I do have to give a quick shout out. Sketch AV, he's my boy. If you like gaming content, then I highly recommend his Pokemon Mystery Dungeon playthrough, as that is just the best thing to just turn on when you want something going on to listen to. Super fun guy. He's also like trying to move into some more kind of video essay content, so he's got some stuff to look out for. Definitely keep an eye on him. And with that, I just wanted again to say thank you for watching, and I'll catch you around.